Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Dungeon of Deadly Delights, a marriage made in horror. I'm, of course, Rob DiLauro, and this is my beautiful wife, Melody.
What's up?
We can't thank you enough for the upswing this channel has received in the past couple weeks. It's absolutely amazing. And, I should have worked with my wife a lot earlier.
Super chest! Yes.
So tonight, in honor of another release that's coming up soon, we wanted to talk about vampires. We're going to call this episode Vamping with the Vamps. I think we got some pretty solid selections this time around, especially, when it comes to the actual classical aspects of these films that people actually love.
All well known. And if they're not, you need to go watch them.
There's a tagline again.
Tagline, go watch it.
So yeah, again, we're going to be talking about vampires in honor of the release of Abigail, which is Radio Silence's latest release, starring Catherine Newton and Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens. It's a ballerina vampire. It's filled with blood and gore, and it's just going to be awesome. There's no way this movie's not going to be awesome. The reviews so far for the premiere have been very solid, and that really makes us happy because, the more great horror movies, the better. We are going to sink our teeth into the first Deadly Delight tonight, which is an underrated, in my opinion, classic from Mike Flanagan. And I think when it came out, I think the release just really had a lot against it. I think that the way it was marketed, it did have, tones of The Shining, and I think people were actually looking for a Shining sequel, which it absolutely was, but I don't think it showed how great this movie is in terms of scale, in terms of characterization, even though it's about an adult Danny Torrance. It didn't really show too much in terms of the story itself. It kind of more focused on the Shining aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to talk about Dr. Sleep, which both of us absolutely love. I think
it is a great movie.
100%.
And I'm going to defend it. It is a vampire. They are vampires in their own right.
Absolutely.
They are definitely vampires in their own right.
Mm-hmm. And of course, when it comes to the vampire aspect, we're talking about the True Knot, which are the characters that were led by Rose the Hat. Love Rose the Hat.
Yeah, he's totally...
No, I definitely love Rose the Hat.
Yeah, he does.
Even though she's a child killer.
She is.
She's a horrible person. She's a horrible
She's a horrible person.
Anywho, so Dr. Sleep, what's your take on this film, Mel?
Oh my god, okay. So first of all, you have this band of travelers, I guess you could call them, right? And they're going all over the world and all over the country looking for special people that have a thing called Shine, which is basically anybody who has special abilities like telepathy or, people have powers.
It doesn't seem too bad. They're just roaming around. They're chilling on the beach.
Yeah.
That's kind of the life you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get in an RV and everything else.
But the only way that these people can live forever is by feeding off of this shine, and the more fear that is in this person that they're collecting from as they collect it, the better the feed for them. Right. So they do torture these children, these people.
Well,
they torture them, they kill them, but they want as much fear out of them as possible so they can collect as much of this shine as possible, right? Because it's their form of food.
Yeah,
they feed well, live well.
Yeah,
feed well, live long.
Yeah. I think the thing about this movie, especially with the True Knot aspect of the film, is these characters remind me so much of you in terms of you're just bohemian, love and wanting to go into an RV and just disappear from the world and stuff.
I do. But you know what, though? I wouldn't be feeding off of people. Okay. I would just go travel. I would go to different conventions, go visit people.
So, if you guys aren't familiar with the film, it is absolutely a sequel to The Shining. The most interesting thing about this movie in particular was that Stephen King absolutely hated Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining his entire career.
He did. He really did.
Absolutely
he hated it. He loathed it.
Yeah, because the whole thing is, Kubrick was trying to make this, very artsy, kind of film, which I absolutely think is a masterpiece myself. But King's idea was he wanted to focus on the sobriety aspects of the character, and like Jack Torrance wasn't the horrible person that he was.
He's an alcoholic.
Yeah,
he's a raging alcoholic.
He did some horrible things, but he wasn't Jack Nicholson, who just had no. I'm surprised he didn't kill his family while they were in the car.
Yeah, he was.
You know what I mean?
Something else.
He was already on the precipice of killing his family. It just took a little push from the ghost for them, for him to finally attempt to do it. But this focuses on an adult Danny Torrance, played by Hugh McGregor, and honestly, this is one of those performances that a lot of these performances in this film are just so criminally underrated.
They're stellar, though. They're so good.
Because it's a horror film.
Even the little girl, man.
Absolutely.
Even the little girl had that real strong shine. Woo!
Yeah, so the whole thing is it's a horror film. We can't, clearly it can't be nominated for Oscars. It can't be nominated for awards, which is total bullshit.
Yeah,
but Hugh McGregor gives a career performance in this film.
Yeah, he's so good.
Because he's showing us a Danny Torrance that, had to pull himself from the darkness, sleeping around with, loose women and, just drinking heavily all the time and,
and not using his shine, not using the shining.
Yeah. So his sobriety is not only just a wake up call for him, but it's also a wake up call for his power and his ability. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like a metaphor for, for living a, clean lifestyle and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that definitely echoed with me as somebody who, had actually dealt with addiction in the past. But again, we are talking about vampires. So what are your thoughts on the True Knot, the actual characters themselves?
Oh, they are so vicious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from first sight, you're looking it's just a group of people that are traveling around, living loosey-goosey, and then you realize, whoa, these people are. And they actually, in the beginning of the movie, they collect. They're collecting people to join their group. There's this one 16-year-old girl that she was a pusher. That's
basically what she
was a pusher, right? Yeah, she was a pusher. So she was making this man do things, and Rose saw what she did, and she was like,
Yeah.
And she gave her a choice. She kidnapped her. Give her a choice. You can join us,
Well, she was underage. She was underage, so she was using men, basically kind
predators.
Predatory nature against them.
And
of course, Rose the Hat sees this, and she goes, "Well,
you could be 16 forever."
Yeah.
You could be. Well, I mean, they would still age, but very slowly.
Mm-hmm. That's why you have to keep, ingesting the shine, because you do basically kind of dry out.
Right. Well, the problem is that people with the shining are very few and far in between. So they're going hungry.
Yeah.
And so they have to instill a lot of fear. And there is a scene where they snag a boy.
Baseball boy.
That's a rough one to watch. That's
rough
to watch. Because you got to realize this is a kid.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kid.
Well, here's the interesting
same
thing.
age as our son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that scene is behind the scenes, Rebecca Ferguson had such a hard time with that scene that she could hardly look at him at the end of that.
Aww.
You know what I mean? She was so distraught from that. And you can see pictures of him, with blood on him, just going, "Hey!"
And she's all like, oh,
yeah, and she's all like, "I'm so disgusted."
I'm a horrible person. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the True Knot, they are fascinating because they are basically these bohemian roamers. You know what I mean? That just happen.
They're like travelers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They've been doing it for centuries too. I mean, these are ancient.
One guy was like a Roman centurion or something like that. Yeah, he was like a Roman soldier. Yeah.
They meet their match, and we get into a situation at the end where it does absolutely become a Shining sequel, which is great. I absolutely think he, Mike Flanagan definitely, it's amazing to me that he was able to take this story, and I think that's why Mike Flanagan is so great at what he does, is he's able to take these stories that nobody else would ever dare touch. The fact that he did Gerald's Game and even Midnight Mass and all these big things that he does, he takes these huge swings, and the fact that he's able to incorporate this movie that's already epic in scale already.
Oh yeah.
And then, like bring it back to the hotel at the end is just wild to me that he was able to pull that off. Even the stuff that they cut out, like, does really complement it so well. It just, that's why I love Mike Flanagan so much, because it just seems like even the stuff that was on the cutting room floor was all could have been necessary to the story.
Yeah.
He just had to cut it down for the, sake of, I guess, the runtime. I probably taste like whiskey and regret.
He does.
Our next Deadly Delight is a film that actually I do love this so much, but like Melody loves this film a little bit more than I do, because just as I feel about Rose the Hat, she has a thing for Josh Hartnett.
Oh yeah, baby, he's hot.
But we're going to be talking about 30 Days of Night, which it became like this cult classic, but
it's such a good movie. Oh my god! I had to watch it again.
It is a good movie.
It was so good. It's so good.
And the thing that's so great about it is, like, I remember reading the graphic novel like way before the movie came out. And, like when you watch the film itself, it's so beautifully mapped out, that graphic novel that Steve Niles created. Like, he, made it like a film already. So it just felt like they just took panels from the page and put it, like in the film itself.
Mm-hmm.
There really wasn't too much they, didn't use in terms of what he had already crafted for the for the story.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I haven't seen the graphic novel. I watched the movie.
So what do you think about 30 Days a Night?
Okay, first of all, these vampires are so vicious, and they all kind of have the same look on their face, like the same face shape, and like with their eyes and with their teeth. I mean, when you watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, they have the same facial structure, but they are vicious. There might be a little bit of like love between like a couple of the vampires, but it's more like they've probably been around each other a long time, but they like have no mercy.
Well, what's really interesting about them, like you talked about the features of them, like the main ones don't have those elongated features and stuff, but then you like go further back into the pack, and it almost looks like they're from like a Picasso or Dali painting or something.
Kind of,
you know what I mean? Just the way their faces are sort of distorted and elongated and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a hierarchy too. So the ones that are going to be higher up,
those are the inbreds.
So maybe those ones that are born and those are ones that are made.
I guess.
I don't know. Like
they're funky looking for sure.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the region that they're from. Who knows? Like we don't know. But it's like they pull up into this town in Alaska that is shutting down. Barrow. It's shutting down for 30 days because it gets 30 days of no sun. So a lot of people leave. They go somewhere else, except for like there's like 120 some odd people.
Which is absolutely true, by the way. That does happen.
Mm-hmm. But there's like 120 some odd people left, and Josh Hartnett is playing the sheriff of this town. And this ship you see this first scene where the ship pulls in and this guy is just walking along.
Before you continue, I actually spoke to somebody from Alaska, and they said that's absolutely true. So you either have the option to stay where you are for the 30 days, or you can actually go like to a different town or a different state or whatever. So you know what I mean? Before it actually happens.
I wonder if they get paid more to stay.
I think they do. And the thing about it is like, that really messes with you like mentally, like
no sun
for 30 days.
I wonder how much vitamin D they have to like consume. Those poor people. They're using tanning beds for sure.
So these vampires come and they ingest A, B, typo, positive, all that stuff.
Yeah. They literally they take out their communications, they take out the cell phones, they kill an entire pack of dogs, sledding dogs. They make it impossible for these people to escape. And then they go and they start terrorizing the entire town, consuming everybody. And then the main vampire guy is like, turns around and looks at his people, and he's like, cut off all their heads. Don't turn any of them. Right. Don't turn any of them.
Right. And you mentioned like the whole strategy thing. Like, they are very kind of militarized in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to go into an area and just completely knock it out. So,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
And they make it to where you don't even know that it was vampires. It'll look like it's just an accident,
Sure.
like a pipeline exploded or something.
Sure. And nobody's paying attention because it's Barrow and it's dark. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
And this main vampire dude, he's like some of the things he says, very philosopher type stuff. Like, you're like, this guy's smart. This guy's really smart. But they use like children and women to try to draw survivors out so they can like.
That'd be horrible if you were just a dum-dum for centuries. I hope you'd learn some stuff, you know?
I'm pretty sure yeah, right.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. He does say some pretty prophetic things. One of my favorite lines is like when one woman goes, "Please God," and he goes, "No God."
He said, "God? No God."
Yeah, like he knows.
No God. 30 Days of Night, absolutely fantastic. There is a sequel to it. It's.
I thought it was pretty good.
I mean, it's okay. Doesn't have Josh
pretty good.
Hartnett.
It was from her perspective.
Yeah.
And you know, Mia Kirshner from the Crow City of Angels was the main vampire.
But there's no Josh Hartnett.
No, there's no Josh Hartnett. But yeah, you know, the thing about these vampires, like you said, they are probably some of the most vicious you've seen on film.
Oh yeah, they are super vicious.
They're unforgiving,
they're covered in blood.
Relentless.
They're very animalistic too. They do a lot of clicking, like.
Yeah, they have their own, you know, kind of communication with each other. They're terrifying.
Yeah,
they're terrifying.
I would not want to come across one of these ones. They're
no, there's nothing romantic about these vampires whatsoever.
Nothing.
But we will get into a romantic vampire soon, though. So if you are into that, we got you covered. Our next deadly delight when it comes to vamping with the vampires is, you know, this film actually means a lot to me in so many ways because years ago I got the chance to interview Guillermo del Toro before the premiere of The Strain, which was on FX.
Which is a great show.
Great show.
Yeah.
Great show. But what was interesting is that, you know, he was telling me when we were talking to each other that a lot of the ideas for The Strain were things that he actually incorporated into the next film that we're going to be talking about, which is the sequel to, of course, Blade 2. And I wanted to talk about this one.
Movie. Oh,
I think it's one of the best sequels ever made.
Yes.
What's really interesting, though, about this film is that Guillermo del Toro, as a director, he was kind of just a gun for hire for this film.
Really?
No, it wasn't something he naturally wanted to do.
He came out with two guns blazing. Pew, pew, pew.
He sure did.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't want to do it, you know, originally. And, you know, like when they told him that he can actually incorporate his own, you know, kind of mythos into it, then he was more interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
So he had scrawled all kinds of different, you know, notebooks and like, you know, used things from, you know, like just, you know, certain, you know, like nightmare stories from Spain and stuff, you know. There's this vampire species called the Strigoi that actually have these like mandibles that, you know, kind of shoot out this way.
And then the thing.
Yeah. So that was kind of like.
I think they have that in the Philippines too.
Yeah.
It's a vampire that goes after pregnant women.
Right. So if you remember, he actually used a lot of that in The Strain. You know, when he wrote those books, and of course, you know, when the FX when FX did the series. But that's kind of like where it sort of stemmed from.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, we're talking about like, you know, vicious, you know, vampires.
Oh yeah, they're hungry.
Yeah,
they're hungry.
They're
always
a whole
hungry.
breed.
Yeah, they're always hungry.
So what did you think about Blade 2?
Oh my God, I think it was better than the first.
You know what? That's our hot take. I do too. Got the blood pack that shows up, you know, with Ron Perlman. And,
we love Ron Perlman.
My gosh,
he's
man.
awesome.
You know, like just a murderer's row of people in terms of like, you know, stunts and Donnie Yen.
They were created to like kill Blade.
Yeah, they were created to kill Blade. So like they just fuck with him mercilessly from the moment they see him.
Yeah. They're like, this is it.
Yeah.
And Blade's like,
well,
come at me, bro.
Ron Perlman asked him, "Can you blush?" Which is really racist, but
yeah, right.
You know, but yeah, they're definitely you know, they're like, you could tell they're just opposed of this, you know, from this team up is opposition from the moment, you know, the Blade walks onto the scene. And I think that's, you know, what also like makes this movie just mwah, because you know, there's no like, you know, hey bro, like I think differently about you and all this other stuff. They all hate him. All hate him from the moment.
And Blade actually gives them a chance, and what happens? They stab him in the back. Literally.
Yep, they definitely stab him in the back. but he sticks a bomb on the back of their head. So let's talk about the Reaper vampires. These are the ones that we're talking about with the mandibles that shoot out and everything. These are some really well crafted creatures, and I think that's why it was so great that Guillermo was part of this, because it does feel like this lived-in world. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like even with the club and stuff, they talk about the biology. When they actually cut one of the Reapers open, that they're basically blood still runs their engine. Even after they're dead and stuff.
Well, they have a chest plate that totally covers their heart. So you have to go through the side, not the front. Right. The only weakness they have is UV sunlight. That's it. That's the only weakness they have. Sunlight.
Yeah, and vampires are just as much a victim as everybody else.
Oh, that's what they go after first, is vampires. And they're absolutely hungry, and the ones that are, the humans that are turned actually end up dying. They end up dying off because they're constantly hungry and their body is just eating away. The only one that doesn't die off from being a Reaper is the original, which is actually the son of the king. Right.
Right. Yeah. And again, that's just an important aspect of the story. And I think that was, I guess it was,
he was an experiment. Yeah. His father was experimenting on him.
Yeah. I guess that, that's just kind of expected when you watch the movie, that's where it's going to go. But,
because the princess is a scientist too. Yeah.
Yeah. But that reveal works so well, I think. You know what I mean? Is that, the father was trying to, just create a whole new race of vampires, and he ended up using his own child, which is really,
messed up. That's super messed up. Yeah.
This world, feels like there was life breathed into it. It doesn't feel like, just a regular sequel. It feels like,
maybe there's a few real vampires.
Guillermo definitely, incorporated his own, kind of homework into this to make it, really unique and special, I think. Right. Next Deadly Delight is another classic, and this is definitely this scratches us where we itch, because I was a kid when this came out. This film could kind of be part of the birthing process of my love for horror, because it just had such an impact on me, to the point where I basically became a lost boy when I grew up. I was wearing leather and hanging out with wild crews and shit like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So definitely, for sure. I'm not saying because of the film, but it just, that rock and roll, kind of mentality.
I still believe!
Yeah, yeah. So there we go. We still believe in the Lost Boys, and that's what we're going to talk about.
Yes!
So, Melody, what's your experience with this film?
Okay, so with the way I was raised, I didn't get to watch it, alright, when I was younger, but as I got 18, 19 years old, out of the house and on my own, I saw this movie, and I was like, no, I love it. And then I saw Star's skirt, and I was like, I love it. But oh my god, it's...
Clearly she loves it.
So you've got these two boys and their mom moving in with her dad because she went through a divorce and she was stupid and didn't do very good in the divorce and lost everything. They moved to Santa Carla with their mom, and there's this whole boardwalk there that has a fairground and everything. Yep. And the mom's out looking for a job, and the grandpa is just some weird guy that likes to stuff animals. Weird.
He's very sweet, but he's in a different movie. He's in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
They even say that.
Yeah. And so these kids, they find this comic book store. Mm-hmm. And then they...
With the Frog Brothers.
Yeah, and then they meet up with the Frog Brothers. Which you got the Coreys there, and then, and then they're like, God, watch out, they're vampires, man. The bloodsuckers are everywhere. Yep. And they give him the comic book on how to survive vampires. Well, the younger brother ends up becoming friends with the older brother. He's like, oh, God, whatever. Mom finally gets a job with this, is it a video store? It's a video store, yeah. But the owner is like infatuated with her. Like, ooh.
Well, I mean, look, the whole thing with this movie is that, Jason Patrick is like, he's led by his little head. He sees Jamie Gertz and, basically like, just his puberty fucking, takes him on this journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then
he does everything, like, but also to be cool, to be, to be part of it, to be part of a clique or whatever.
Yeah.
All that's really fun.
The older brother is turning.
Mm-hmm.
And the younger brother's freaking out. And he goes to the Frog Brothers, and they're trying to help him with bringing his brother back. And, then it goes off the rocker. We could talk about this. We can totally give stuff away on this one.
Well, I wanted to talk real quick about, just Joel Schumacher and just what he was going to originally, like, what he's originally planned to do because of the studios was this was going to be like the Lost Boys. So it was going to be like literally like this sort of, like everybody's a kid kind of Goonies, like Peter Pan kind of thing, where, it's like kid vampires and stuff. Mm-hmm. And no, Joel Schumacher is like, no, I'm going to make this bloodier. I'm going to make this gayer. I'm going to make this, more stylistic. You know what I mean? Like, he really, like, took the reins of the story and, like, put it in a whole different direction because, like, it would have just been a totally different movie if he didn't.
Well, I mean, it made sense that they used, like, made these teenage boys. Mm-hmm. They'd be, like, older teenage, like, 17, 18, 19, you know what I mean? And they're vicious little shits. Like, they had the security guard that pissed him off, and then they went and they got him. There was a bunch of bikers that pissed him off, and when they got him, like, you know what?
They were having a gang war with the other biker gang.
Yeah, they took him out, wiped him out. Bonfire time, yay!
That's actually, you know what? To be honest, that is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie because that really like puts that whole movie in a whole different.
Well, that's when you finally get to see their vampire.
Well,
face
not only
too.
that, but like they're just cracking into their skulls, like their beer bottles. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's wild. Like it really takes it to like a horror intensity.
Yeah,
that you're not expecting. It's just like holy shit, you know what I mean? And they're just like you just see like this montage of them like killing the gang and like throwing their bodies on the pyre and shit.
Yeah,
it's just like really intense.
Oh yeah.
And then of course that's when Kiefer Sutherland like comes up and tells Jason Patrick, he says,
you're one of us.
What we are. Now you know what you are.
You're one of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's sleep all day, party all night. It's fun to be a vampire, just like the poster. There's no.
Yeah.
There's no other dynamic with that. You know what I mean? Just
sleep
be
all
young
day, party
and
all night.
fucking be crazy, and like that's it. You know,
be young forever. Yep.
This movie is just so much. It's so much fun. It's so classic, and the soundtrack still rules. Like
I still believe.
Joel Schumacher, like he found Tim Capello, and he was like, yes, and he like put this sweaty saxophone muscular guy in the movie. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that, that just went past the studio notes. Like, I'm gonna do this, you know what I mean? And thank God he did.
Yeah, because I still believe.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Our next Deadly Delight is another film that I think Melody feels the same way as I do. I'm absolutely
love this movie.
Yeah.
So much.
I remember when my dad showed this to me. Well, there's two different factors that actually happened because I was very young when Tarantino came out, so like I already like was like really enamored by like his just
Reservoir
style.
Dogs.
And,
yeah,
Pulp Fiction was like my favorite movie. Still is my favorite movie of all time. So then of course there was Robert Rodriguez, and the first thing I saw was El Mariachi, which is of course was his infamous film.
Oh my God!
That he had no budget for, and then Desperado with Antonio Banderas, and that was awesome. But man, these two together. Well, actually, before we talk about the actual innards of the film, like there is actually something that I know. If you're not familiar with.
By the way, this movie is from Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original story came from Robert Kurtzman of K&B Effects, legendary effects artist. He kind of came up with the treatment. That was his original idea.
Bulldog Kurtzman.
Yep, absolutely. And if you look online, there was a teaser that he created with Joe Pilato from Day of the Dead, playing one of the Gecko brothers. So like it was really kind of his idea. according to him, the idea wasn't necessarily stolen.
Well, he worked on the movie.
Well, yeah,
he did the effects for the movie. And by the way, amazing effects.
Yeah, and
he will always be a master
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know Bob, so yeah,
he is a master effects makeup artist.
But what was really interesting is that, you know, like he was, you know, like he kind of, you know, let this go and he allowed it to, you know, kind of, you know, like take shape in the way that Rodriguez and Tarantino wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it does feel like two different movies, doesn't it? It feels like, you know, like a heist movie, and then, you know, like definitely just, pun intended, bleeds into. It's
like two storylines that bleed together. Yeah, it's two storylines that come together.
Strip club in Mexico. What are your thoughts on From Dusk Till Dawn, Mel?
All right, so first of all, you need to not be super sensitive when you watch this movie, okay? Because it is raw.
Yeah.
There is some very twisted things that happen in this movie. It starts off with a heist. These two brothers are on the run. And they
destroy this clerk in the place he works in.
And the one brother is very mentally ill and a serial killer of women. And the other brother is he just likes to rob and kill. And then you have, on the other end, you have
he likes to rob and kill, but there's some sort of moral compass that
he doesn't
doesn't have.
Yeah, like he doesn't hurt women.
Well, he doesn't rape women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he does tell that woman, you know, like, listen, you know, they have that bank teller hostage, and he tells her, you know, he goes, you know, if you try to run, like, you know, Mr. 45 here is, you know, like, gonna, you know, make some noise, you know what I mean? But, you know, he goes to, you know, get them food, and then, you know, comes back to just this bloody mess.
Yeah. So his brother literally hears and sees things, probably schizophrenic, like, you know what I mean? Like, definitely schizophrenic. Yeah. Hears and sees things that aren't really happening. Like, he thinks women are talking to him in a certain way, and they're not. And then you have this father and his two kids that are on a road trip in an RV, and they get...
Can I say Tarantino's, you know, like, he's done some, you know, stuff like Playing Jimmy and stuff, and, you know, like, don't tell me how good my fucking coffee is, okay? You know, like, he's done that. But, like, man, I think he's really great in this movie.
Yeah.
I think he really does compliment George Clooney really well.
Oh, yeah.
And what's really interesting is that George Clooney was, like, you know, he wasn't the huge star that he was when he did this movie.
No.
You know, so I think this is definitely, like, you know, this is a climb up for him, too, for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. All right, so back to the storyline, and then you have they end up meeting up. Well, not on purpose. So the two brothers end up taking this family hostage in their RV, and they're going across the border.
It's a preacher who's, you know, kind of like, you know, disoriented after his, you know, what from religion after his wife, you know, died in a car accident.
Yeah.
His daughter, played by Juliette Lewis, and
she's
her brother.
So young in this. Yeah.
And this is probably one of my favorite Juliette Lewis performances. It's so, oh my god, she's so good.
Yeah, she's really, really good in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they end up crossing the border and going down into Mexico. And they end up going to this trucker stop.
The Titty Twister.
Which is called the Titty Twister. And the door guy's like, you can't come in here. This is for truckers. And he's like, this is a fifth wheeler, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta let me in. So he ends up letting him in, and the Titty Twister is a strip club, and that's when things start to get
great
weird.
By the way.
Yeah.
I mean, you walk in and, like, you can just tell this place is so
you got girls dancing in alcoves. You got a band playing. You got the bar going.
Absolutely.
You got all kinds of people sitting around, all kinds of weird.
Very young Danny Trejo, like, tending bar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got Selma Hayek in her famous snake dance.
Satanica Pandemonium.
Oh my god.
And, you know, like,
so hot in this movie.
Props to Quentin, you know, like, he does have a foot fetish, and the fact that he wrote himself into the scene, I mean, you know, like...
Foot right in his mouth. Right in his mouth.
You know?
Yeah, and in this, yeah.
And then all hell breaks loose, literally.
Oh, literally, and then like everybody, like all the vampires come out, and you realize all the dancers, everybody that works at the Titty Twister, they're all vampires. They block these doors down, and man, they start going after everybody, and then it becomes a race for survival.
This world does, like, it doesn't get into like lore and shit like that. You know what I mean? What's really funny is that like George Clooney like basically like goes to everybody like in the bar and goes like, "Does anybody know about vampires?" And Tom Savini goes, "What, like a Time Life book?" You know what I mean? Like nobody knows anything. So it feels like it could, be a real thing, but like these people have no clue what the fuck they're doing because like
they're a whole bunch of truck drivers.
But it feels like a lived-in world, like I said before. Like the Titty Twister, like once they like break into the rooms and stuff, like you can see that like they've been just eating truckers for years. There's all this different shit, like squirt guns and like all these different things that they just like just stockpiled and
stealing all their shit.
Yeah. It's bloody and it's fun and there's all kinds of different fluids. I mean, there's green and there's purple and there's fucking all this shit.
Yup.
It's so much fun, man. This movie's awesome.
And there's Salma Hayek.
I absolutely love it.
A young Salma Hayek.
A young Salma Hayek. Final Deadly Delight when it comes to vampires is a film that, again, these are all bangers that we chose. And, like Melody and I have a deep connection to this one as well. Her and I being a fucking really major fan of Anne Rice.
Oh, love
from
her.
A very young age.
I think we own all of her books.
I think we do. I was introduced to Anne Rice at a very early age. Reading her books, especially in the Lestat series, like really, put not only just a different spin on vampires, but like really like, I don't know, like made me have a different love for vampires than I normally would have, just from all the emotionality, the drama. It kind of plays out like a, like a soap opera to a certain extent.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? But there is a lot of really like, epic moments and stuff in it as well. You know what I mean? But it also, it's the thing I appreciated about it, especially, like when I was reading it as a young kid, like,
it's erotica.
It is very gay.
It's erotica.
You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't shy away from the fact that, like, it's not just like, oh, these vampires just, love each other because they just happen to be vampires. You know what I mean? Like,
no, it's two men that are absolutely in love with each other.
Who absolutely adore each other and love each other. Which is definitely delved into in the Interview with the Vampire series, which if you're not watching that...
you should.
Go watch it.
You should. You definitely should.
Yeah, it definitely delves into the the actual like homosexuality of that story. The AMC series like really just like
nails it on the head.
Drives that stake in. No, pun intended. Holy crap! But we were talking about Interview with the Vampire, of course, which is God. I remember seeing this film and just being absolutely enamored by it in the theaters. So he's super emo in this movie.
Oh, he is. He wanted to die to begin with. He was suicidal to begin with,
right?
Because he lost his wife and child, and then Lestat finds him.
But he was also very young, and I think that's the thing that's great about it, because
what was he like 20, 19, 20?
I think so, because he says
21 or something like that. Yeah,
I was a young man, just as you are now. When he's talking to Christian Slater, the journalist, Daniel.
Oh, that's right. You got Christian Slater in this movie too. Oh my God.
Yeah,
who was originally supposed to be played by
River Phoenix. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
River Phoenix actually died 4 weeks outside the Viper Room before the film. So Christian Slater, kind of jumped into it, and I think he did a great job.
Great job, yeah.
But he's talking to Daniel, the journalist, and he says something along the lines of, like I was young like you, but like back then I would have been like a full adult. I ran a plantation, and like had a family, and it was just a whole different world. So he does, kind of, add that particular aspect of it, that he was a young man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was young, but I mean, it's different times, literally different times.
Right.
Probably girls getting married at 15 years old,
which his wife was probably 15.
Probably, yeah. And then you have this where Lestat is showing Louis the ways.
I didn't create history. I'm just saying,
Right. Lestat is showing Louis the ways of being a vampire, and Louis is having a really hard time with consuming human blood.
Mm-hmm.
So you go through this whole history with them, and the different places that they have to go to, And then the lengths that Lestat will go to keep Louis with him by turning a little girl that like Louis almost drains because, you know, he's in a state of...
Well, he finds her in the plague section of this town that was kind of blocked off. And, you know, like she was like kind of just sitting there with her dead mother. And, you know, Brad Pitt was going to, you know, drain her. And, you know, like Lestat is such a toxic bastard that he sees this and he's just like, ah, bravo, bravo. And he like makes this little girl.
And he brings her back to their flat.
Let's talk about, you know, the whole thing with Tom Cruise. Originally, you know, Anne Rice wanted to cast Julian Sands, rest in peace.
Oh, Julian Sands was amazing.
You know, if you guys don't, you know Warlock, go watch it. The first one.
Yeah, the first one.
And the second one. It's okay. It's stupid as shit, but it's okay.
It's okay.
Julian Sands is actually like...
He also did a horror version of the Phantom of the Opera, too.
That's right.
Yep.
So anyway, Julian Sands was originally supposed to play Lestat. That was Anne Rice's choice, and the studios decided to go with Tom Cruise.
Well, they didn't know him because he was English, right?
This is before the internet, and Anne Rice was living. You know, her whole thing was like, you know, if you're going to cast Lestat, you know, Tom Cruise is Lestat, then Edward G. Robinson is my Rhett Butler, which is basically saying like, you know, these actors don't mix with these characters. You know what I mean? And she was pissed. But then, of course, you know, she saw the film and it kind of turned around for her. And then she actually called Tom and apologized to him because she couldn't see anybody else playing the role.
Yeah.
Although I will say, we are also fans of, you know, Queen of the Damned, even though, like, you know, people shit on that movie. I think he did a great job as Lestat, and the other guy in AMC.
Oh my god,
that guy is Lestat for me. The AMC actor.
Oh yeah. He looks very French. He looks like an old French lord.
Sure, but also, you know, just the toxic aspect of him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally.
Really
narcissist.
Absolutely, and just toxic and abusive and horrible. And that's kind of like what we're supposed to get from Tom Cruise. You know, like you know, like their relationship is also toxic, but it doesn't have that joie de vivre that the show has.
Yeah. Well, in the show, he almost beats Louis to death.
Yeah, drops him out of the air. But yeah, you know, I mean, we just know Brad Pitt's sad. And he fucking hates everything.
He's emo.
And, you know, we see his evolution as well.
He was hot in this.
Yeah, this is young Brad Pitt.
This is back in his hot days.
Very much so. You know, and then, you know, we get into the whole situation where they start traveling the world. They're looking for different vampires. They
find them.
Yeah. He encounters this one doof named Iago, and he introduces them to the Théâtre des Vampires. Which is, of course, you know, vampires pretending to be humans, pretending to be vampires, and that's how they feed. And that's where we meet Armand.
Oh, Armand.
Which is, of course, Antonio Banderas.
Armand. And Armand wants Louis for himself.
Right, but also, the one thing you don't do, kill another vampire, which is something that Claudia ends up doing. So, yeah, this does not bode well for our duo. I would say, I personally, I think it's a perfect movie.
I think it's great. It's epic. I mean, it sucks you in. It really does. And if you feel like it's in multiple stories,
it's so cute.
But it's like multiple stories in one. It's like it's not just one story. There's like so many different little subplots going on throughout this entire movie, and you still can't get rid of Lestat.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of him.
Yeah.
Like, he comes back.
Think we drained this episode. What do you think?
Try, baby. Try.
That is our show. Thank you so much for your continued love and support. We really do appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It definitely helps the channel, and we've got so much amazing stuff coming up, including our next episode, which is going to be in honor of the 20th anniversary of Shaun of the Dead. And we're going to talk about zombies. So until then, we're going to have a pint and wait for it all to blow over. We'll see you next time. Talk to you soon.
Scare you later.
Bye.